This program contains true stories of rescues. All of the 911 calls you will hear are real. Whenever possible, the actual people involved have helped us reconstruct the events as they happened.
This is 911. Do you have an emergency? Chesterfield Emergency Service. They're in good hands here.
When you're in trouble miles from nowhere, sometimes all you have to keep you alive is hope. I'm William Shatner. Tonight, true stories of sudden danger and people who care on Rescue 911. We begin in the British Columbia coastal mountains above Vancouver, Canada. On July 24th, 1990, 63-year-old Bud Reichman and his 15-year-old grandson, David James, set out on a hike. Some of the footage in the story was taped as events unfolded in the hours that followed.
Bud Reichman and his grandson David had hiked the trails in this area many times before.
I was to meet them at 7:30, so I headed up to Lions Bay. I wanted to arrive there about 7 o'clock, and I could just read until they come. So I settled down and I got the radio all set up to receive their message.
7:30, we better call them later. Call them.
On this hike, Bud had brought a walkie-talkie so he could contact his wife, Margaret. But when Bud tried to radio and warn her they would be late, he couldn't reach her.
Margaret.
7:30, there wasn't anything. It was just static. I couldn't get any reception at all.
Go down to the hill here. Find a clear area.
Fog was starting to roll in, and it would soon be getting dark. So they decided to leave the trail and cut across to another trail further down the side of the mountain.
Grandma's going to be getting worried about this time. Watch your step through here. Just
I thought there's no way he'll get out of this alive, but I thought I had to get down to him. I have to be as careful as I can because I'll break my neck too.
The 63-year-old Bud Reichman had fallen nearly 600 feet down the slope of the mountain.
My granddad was bleeding pretty badly when I first got down to him. Looked like every bone in his body was broken. I knew he was alive, but I didn't think he'd have much longer. First thing that came into my mind was, I gotta help him, I gotta do something to save his life. So I just took my jacket and slid it under his head and wrapped his head up. Said, if you can hear me, I'm going for help.
Okay, I'm gonna go for help. If you can hear me, try and hold this on tighter. It might slip off, okay? I'm going for help, okay?
I gotta get somewhere where I can contact somebody. In my mind, I was saying, if there's a will, there's a way.
The dense fog was making it difficult to see, and the terrain suddenly got much steeper and rockier.
A couple times I'd slip. There was layer upon layer of rocks, and it would sort of crumble away, and I thought, I gotta stop hurrying because you're just gonna fall and kill yourself. I just couldn't go any further. All around me were cliffs. If I moved, I could slip right off and keep sliding right off the cliff and kill myself.
David's only hope for getting help was his walkie-talkie.
The knobs were broken. There was some sand and water on it, and I didn't think it was going to work, but I shook it around and banged it around a little, thinking that let's hope it works.
Is anyone out there? Please, anyone! Mayday, mayday!
When we continue,
David!
They had the best looking for him. They heard his whistle. He's whistling like crazy, but they still couldn't locate him. It's like a needle in a haystack.
David! 15-year-old David James was hiking with his grandfather when the older man slipped and fell 600 feet down the side of a mountain. When David went for help, he became stranded on a rocky ledge. All he had to rely on was a whistle and a walkie-talkie that might not be working.
But someone in a nearby town did manage to pick up David's call for help and pass word on to his parents.
He came across that he had picked up a message from my son, that he was lost in the mountains and that his grandfather was dead. And when I realized what mountains they're talking about, people die up there within sight of the city. Have you phoned the RCMP?
I can't believe something like this happened. I mean, my God, this is a little hiking trip. I went into a bit of a panic state, and, you know, by this point it was dark.
Okay.
I'm going to go call search and
Yeah,
rescue.
do that. Look, would you tell David that his mother and father are on the way over there?
The North Shore Search and Rescue Team was called in to begin a ground search, headed by George Salahi.
We sent in one hasty response team from Cypress Bowl.
This looks like a good spot for a whistle check.
David! David!
We also then had one of our other search masters with his truck, which had a CB radio in it, to try to make direct contact. And then the police phoned me back and told me that somebody in Horseshoe Bay was talking directly to the lad.
So, how many cars and people are at the headquarters to have to do with this?
Hey, you're pretty important in the middle of the night in Horseshoe Bay, let me tell you, guy. Everybody's rooting for you here.
Are they gonna head down the road?
Michael Berry had purchased a set of walkie-talkies only a few hours before he first heard David's cry for help.
It was just too coincidental for words.
First of all, I've never, ever bought a pair of walkie-talkies, I don't think, in my life, and it happened to be that very day that I did.
A very fortuitous buy. Best purchase I ever made. They're gonna be up there soon.
If I get out alive.
Hey. Don't talk like that. Of course you will. You're only...
Around 2 o'clock in the morning, we suggested to David's parents that they should go down to speak to David, just to help calm him down.
It's so good to hear your voice.
How are you doing?
Terrible. I'm freezing cold, but I'm scared.
Pretty soon, David, pretty soon. Are you using your whistle once in a while?
Yeah, but I'm worried I'm behind rocks, but that's gonna be hard for them to hear me.
Don't worry, just keep it up. Your mom wants to say hi.
Hi, honey.
I love you.
I love you, too. He'd been through a really emotional time. Someone that he loved had gone through a terrible accident. He truly believed that his grandfather was dead.
Minutes, okay? Hold on, did you don't give up shit? Don't know that for sure. We've got 86 injured, so don't worry about that. We'll find you first, and we'll look into that, okay? I saw his injuries, Mom said.
One thing he'd emphasized was the amount of blood. So you start putting two and two together in your head, and the little bit of hope that you have dwindles.
What's going on down there?
They've got 2 search teams on the mountain, and we're down in Horseshoe Bay, and this is where they've made contact with you. But the trouble is, honey, you know, we don't want your batteries to run out. We gotta make this short and brief, okay? And you gotta keep blowing on that whistle and just stay calm, okay?
And look to the
Okay, I love you, bye.
Lights.
You gotta look to the sky for the lights too, David. It's really important, okay?
Yeah, I love you.
I love you too, sweetheart.
We had the assistance of the BC ferries, and we used their spotlight, which we used for pinpointing the boy.
Hi, David? Yeah? Okay, we're scanning the lights again, okay? So we know it's still foggy up there, but we're still going to scan it. So you tell us, give us a shot if you see anything. Okay.
When David came across the walkie-talkie and said, yeah, the light's right on me, but by the time that message was relayed to the ferry, the light had moved, and they never did get that light back on him, and that was like, your heart sinks.
David, I want you to give me what you feel is your location, but separate your words very carefully so that I can understand them.
And they had the best looking for him. And hours later, even with the walkie-talkie and pretty well knowing where he was, they couldn't find David. They heard his whistle. He's whistling like crazy, but they still couldn't locate him. It's like a needle in a haystack.
I felt that, as the night went on, David was a little more negative. He said, I can't take this anymore. I need a copter, Mom. I need a helicopter to get out of here.
Hi, David. A lot of people down here waiting for you.
David was forced to spend the night on the mountain. The searchers hoped that by daybreak, the fog would clear enough that helicopters would be able to join in the search.
David, it would be no problem getting on it. No problem at all. You don't have to do anything on your own. Leave it to them.
By the following morning, David's walkie-talkie batteries were running low, and his signal was fading. His uncle, John Reitman, tried to maintain contact with him.
David's radio was getting pretty weak, and the search and rescue guys knew he'd need it to bring the helicopter in. So I took off down the highway until we got to Newman Creek, and David's signal got pretty strong there, so we knew he was up above us. Okay, this is the way they want you to do it. Either up the hill or down the hill, and left or right as you're facing down the hill. As you're looking towards the water, do they have to go left or right? And do they have to go up or down? Left and down. Yep. Don't panic, David. They'll just keep circling around until they lock right in on you. Don't worry. The helicopter went right over top of him a couple times, and David was getting a little freaked because he could see it go by, and it didn't stop. And his batteries were just about gone.
I can't hear you, David. Keep trying. Try spelling it, David. Try to spell it. I can't hear you. I still can't understand. I'm sorry.
You figure right?
My right. My right.
52-40, parents say my right.
Can you see the chopper right now?
He's right above you, what? So stop there?
You got him.
They got you, pal. They got you.
All right.
They see ya.
The last thing we heard was the copter pilot saying, we have visual. I yelled, David, that's fantastic. He was gone. I mean, that was it. There was no batteries left.
After 13 hours stranded on the mountain, David was airlifted out to where his family was waiting for him. He was then transferred to a second ambulance and taken to a nearby hospital where he was treated for mild hypothermia.
Just seeing him flesh and blood, and all his fingers and toes are there, and give him a big hug and say thank God.
He really wanted to tell the story about my dad. In the back of his mind, I think that he felt that he hadn't done enough.
I was lucky that I got the radio to work.
It was tough to get him to go to the hospital. He was going to go back up. He was going to find his grandfather.
The search then focused on finding Bud Reichman.
Finally, the small helicopter snuck out from where we were, went back to Newman Creek. They took quite a risk to get into the area because they were basically dodging the clouds and the fog, and it was fairly windy at that time, too.
Within 2 hours, David rejoined the search for his grandfather.
I got back to the mountain, and the first thing I did was I went in, looked at the map, figuring I knew where he was. Maybe I can help out.
David's directions were passed to the 2 helicopters, while the ground search continued below, including volunteer Bob Charters.
We continued until finally the terrain became so steep that we had to start fixing ropes and rappelling down the ropes. We heard the smaller helicopter, a little Bell 209, above us, and they spotted us and said they could see our climbing rope through the trees. And then there was a pause, and then they said, "Holy smokes, we see him down below you." Another pause. "My God, he's waving at us." When we heard that, it was just like a shot of electricity went through the whole group. We were just charged.
He has responded to us by moving his arm and waving at the helicopter, and we're just making efforts to get our crew in there, and they're rappelling down now to the location of the subject.
I saw Bud. He looked up. He could see me. He couldn't move. I just yelled out to him, "I'm with the North Shore Rescue Team. We're going to get you out of here as soon as possible."
Bud, how you doing? Hey, don't move, don't move.
He looked up at me, and the only thing that he asked me that he wanted to know was how David was.
Nearly 19 hours after he fell down the mountain, rescuers finally reached Bud Reichman.
He'd been through a horrendous fall, a very tough, cold night, and he's well on his way to severe hypothermia at that point. But Bud seemed to have a real spirit. He just seemed to be a real gutsy kind of a guy, and it's obvious that he had no intention of packing it in up there.
Word of Bud's rescue was relayed to his family.
He was waiting.
Yeah, they said he...
Oh, that's great news.
By the time I walked back, they said, "Good news, he's moved his arm. That means he's alive." I thought, okay, this is perfect.
Feel good?
Very good job, David.
Thanks.
Luckily.
Thanks a lot.
He was transported to Vancouver General Hospital, where Dr. Ron Walls headed up the trauma team that treated him.
We got a call from the paramedics saying that they were bringing in by helicopter a man who had fallen over 600 feet. When I heard that and knew it was on the North Shore Mountains, which are very rugged, I was expecting to find a patient who would be basically unsalvageable. But when they brought Mr. Reichman in, what we were surprised to see was that he was awake and cooperative and actually very lucid and had no evidence of a significant head injury. It was remarkable to go through his x-rays in sequence and find essentially not a single significant injury. Chest looks good. This is a sleeping bag over here.
He's built like an ox, so I guess we shouldn't have all been so surprised that he came out of it okay. Maybe the other way around. Maybe we should have been surprised if he had come out of this dead rather than alive.
2 months later, Bud has recovered enough to go hiking again.
I think 2 things saved him. Number 1, his grandson's presence of mind in getting down to him and getting him stabilized and then getting out. If his grandson had stayed with him, I think he would have died on the mountain.
This back, and this gives you
The second thing is that inexplicable factor. Somebody was smiling on him that day, and he took that horrible fall that should have killed him, and it didn't.
So if you take that now and aim it.
If I had been conscious to see him climb down there unassisted, without ropes, without anybody to help him, would have just killed me to begin with. But the fact that he got there and he remembered all the things that we had talked about under this kind of stress just absolutely delighted me, because I think that most kids his age would have been inclined to panic.
I want to thank the search and rescue people, the West Van Police, everybody who was involved. There was nobody who really didn't put a huge effort into it. It was great. I can't thank them enough.
What happened on that mountain has changed my life in that I would never go off the trail for any reason unless I had proper ropes or things like that. I feel good about myself because everything turned out for the best. I'm just happy that it's over with and my grandfather's okay.
He's a delight to have around, and we've been very close to him since he was born, really. And of course he has his friends and all these other things, but he always has a little time for his old grandpa.
Next.
I need help! We heard a gentleman yelling out for assistance. We went up to see what the problem was and immediately realized that we had an emergency situation here.
On September 7th, 1987, in the waters off the Florida Keys, 68-year-old Walter Benjamin and his 69-year-old wife, Joanne, set out in their boat to spend the day together, like they had so many times before.
I guess you could say we were childhood sweethearts. I first slept with her when I was 6. When my little brother was born, my folks took me over to her house and they dumped me in her bed. So I had to marry her to make an honest woman out of her. But we've known each other all our lives.
Walter and his wife Joanne shared a special love for each other and for life. On that late summer day, they were planning to go scuba diving together, as they often did.
Before we go into the water, we always check each other's equipment to make sure that her regulator is proper, that it's working. She's got her airs on and vice versa. She checks my air, make sure that mine's working, so we know everybody's ready. Then our custom was to proceed to the front of the boat, and we meet at the mooring line, and then we go down together. We never went down alone. When I got around to the mooring line, Joanne was sort of laying face down in the water with her snorkel in her mouth instead of her regulator.
No, you don't have your regulator in here. What's going on? Hey, no, what's wrong?
And I lifted up her head and gave her a regulator to put it into her mouth. She couldn't accept it. She said, I can't breathe, and that's the last she said, and she was just absolutely gone at that point. I thought, what in the hell am I going to do? Getting her around the boat was easy. Getting her into the boat was almost impossible, because we had to go up a ladder. I was struggling in the water, trying to hold her up, get rid of my gear, so I could get up on enough of the ladder to pick her up and get her in the boat, or push her up into the boat. And I couldn't do it by myself. I just couldn't do it.
Laurie McLaughlin was on a marine sanctuary boat in the area.
I was out on patrol with one of the officers, and we heard a gentleman yelling out for assistance. He was actually in the water with his wife, and they were at the stern of their boat.
I need help!
We went up to see what the problem was and immediately realized that we had an emergency situation here. Somebody was in trouble.
Just luckily, the park ranger came by in his boat, and a young woman from his boat jumped off, swam over to our boat, and helped hold Joanne up. And I was just trying to get her out of the water. That's all I could think to do. Get her out of the water, get her in a boat, then we can work on her. I didn't know whether she was alive or dead. She was absolutely limp.
Two of us took her, he picked her up, and I pushed from the in the water position. We got her out of the water and into to the bottom of the boat. Once he got her on board, and once I was able to climb up in the boat, we did strip her down of her dive gear so that we could then continue on from there.
You all right?
She's not breathing. Check the pulse. No pulse. I'm going to start CPR. Bill Green, call.
Sanctuary officer Bill Green called for help.
Luke E5, Bay Honda base. I radioed into the Bay Honda State Park base and notified them of the medical emergency and had them send an ambulance to Dolphin Marina.
Medic 5, Lines Medic 5, Big Pine Rescue, Big Pine Rescue. Signal 49, possible cardiac arrest. Reference an elderly female. CPR is in progress.
Jay Marzella was spending the day with his wife and brothers not far from Walter's boat.
We were all in the water, and as I looked up, I noticed the particular boat that we had spotted as we came into the area, and alongside of it was the park ranger. So I left Joe and swam over to my boat just to get a better look, just to see, was it something routine or was it something more serious that they might need some help?
I just responded without even thought. You just become a machine and you just go with this programming that you had been trained with. So it didn't even occur to me that, oh, all of a sudden I'm going to have to use CPR for the first time. It was just get in there and go with it.
Lukey Ranger, Lukey Ranger, Lukey Ranger. This is the Phoenix?
After hailing him 2 or 3 times on the radio and getting no reply, I shouted to him.
Officer! Officer, do you need any help?
Yes, we need CPR assistance.
At this point, I shouted to Joe that we need CPR.
CPR!
I swam down to Mark, tapped him, motioned him to come up.
Both Joe and Mark Marzella were firefighters, trained as EMTs.
We didn't know who was injured, what was happening. We just knew that somebody needed CPR at the time.
We need help. Hurry.
I saw an elderly lady lying on the deck of the boat, very obviously unconscious.
When we continue,
all I could think was that this poor man had lost his wife right there in front of us, right before our eyes.
It had been nearly 5 minutes since 69-year-old Joanne Benjamin suffered a heart attack while scuba diving. Her husband, Walter, could only watch helplessly as Laurie McLaughlin performed CPR, and other divers in the area joined in the effort to save his wife's life.
Hey! What can I do?
We need oxygen.
Okay. Hang on.
Hurry.
My brother Joe and I climbed in the boat immediately, and we started 2-person CPR. My brother Joe started on the ventilations, and the woman that was there helping, she continued on with her compressions. I requested the oxygen, and I gave it to Joe, who was already up at the victim's head.
1, 2, 3.
The patient at the time looked very serious to me. I realized when there was no pulse, she was cyanotic, pupils were dilated, that she was either in cardiac or respiratory arrest. My experience turning somebody around from being that close to death has been very small. I've probably performed CPR on 20 to 30 people in the last 8 years, and I can only remember 4 that have survived.
No pulse?
Okay, we got no pulse. CPR. We need to get her to shore. Go on up front and cut loose the anchor.
Okay.
As the 3 boats headed toward shore, Joanne had been without a pulse or heartbeat for nearly 10 minutes.
I thought that I may have lost her. And I didn't think about it as much getting her in the boat as I did on that terrifying ride into shore.
All I could think was that this poor man had lost his wife right there in front of us, right before our eyes, and that all we could do was just to take her to shore, and that hopefully someone at the hospital could do something for her.
I kept saying, have you got a pulse? Was her heart beating? Is she breathing? And they were so busy they couldn't tell me what was happening. I know I was scared, and I'm still scared, and I still get choked up. I'm sorry. I still get all choked up when I remember what happened.
Rescue units arrived at the marina and began preparing for Joanne's arrival.
We set up our IV lines, we set up our life pack defibrillator, and got the board and everything ready on the gurney. There was not a lot of communications between us and the boat, so we really didn't know what kind of condition she was going to be in when she arrived at the dock.
It was a real gray situation. I had little hopes of her coming out of what she was deeply into. The oxygen was starting to get low. And it wouldn't have been many more minutes and the oxygen would have been empty.
It was actually just a few minutes from the dock. We saw that the color started coming back into her face and her lips, and we could see that the oxygen that we were pumping through CPR through her system was actually having a positive effect.
As soon as they said, we have a pulse, oh man, I'll tell you, that was something else.
All of a sudden, it was just a wave came over me that just changed, just absolute sadness and this wonderful feeling of joy and happy for the man who did not lose his wife, happy for those in the boat who were working on her, that they had just absolutely saved her life from what they had done, from the skills that they had had. It was wonderful.
I realized that what had happened was a true success story, and that CPR really is something that everybody needs to know because it can really work, and it comes in handy at times when you least expect it.
Joanne was taken to a nearby hospital where she was treated for cardiac arrest and released after 10 days. For the past 2 years, a surgically implanted pacemaker has helped Joanne to lead a more normal life.
I think I am so lucky to be alive today, and not a day goes by that I don't think about how lucky I am that all these people were around just at the right times.
Joanne and Walter have become close friends with her rescuers.
Seeing Mrs. Benjamin now is a really good feeling, knowing that we helped her and helped her family, that they can still enjoy her and her them. It could have been 2 other people in the same situation, and they may have never contacted us ever again. What really made it different was how they responded with such great thanks and friendship, warmth to us afterwards.
I'm grateful to Laurie, I'm grateful to the ranger, I'm grateful to the bottle of oxygen, I'm grateful to the ambulance drivers, the doctor in the hospital, the Marcella bus. I'm just grateful for the whole kit and caboodle that I've still got my wife.
Joanne and Walter Benjamin recently celebrated 47 years of marriage.
My almost fatal accident that day has brought us much closer together. While it was a terrible thing to have had happen, the happiest part was that I got feeling good again and having a good time in life. I just have so much to be thankful for.
She's my life. I can't say how much I love her, except that she's my life.
Next.
Okay. Kids are a little special. You're not just treating a patient, you're treating a future.
We need a chest x-ray now, please.
Accident-related injuries are the #1 killer of children. Yet there are few trauma centers in the country specially designed for their emergency needs. This story is not a recreation. It's the reality of life and death at Children's National Medical Center in Washington, D.C., a trauma center built just for kids.
No more shots, okay?
I don't want one of those again.
No more shots. Kids are a little special.
No more boo-boos, okay?
Is it gonna hurt?
No, it hurts.
You won't feel a thing. You're not just treating a patient, you're treating a future.
Okay. Okay, little baby.
Children's Lifeline, this is Kathy.
A call comes in from a small hospital 100 miles away. They're fighting to save the life of a 2-year-old boy, A.J. Winters, who was struck by a motorcycle.
This is Marty Eichelberger. How you doing?
Dr. Marty Eichelberger, director of the trauma center, takes over.
He's got apparently an open fracture, open femur fracture on the right, and he's in a little path through the sport, and he's open in his left eye. His pupil's fixed and dilated, but he's open in his eyes.
A.J. has suffered massive head and facial injuries, and his airway is blocked.
And they're going to trach him? Oh, yeah. The tube that was placed in the baby's airway was done under emergency conditions. And if the baby it doesn't breathe and we don't provide oxygen to the baby, then the baby's going to die. It's as simple as that. You know, that thing is going to have to be secured because they pop out real easy, and especially in a 2-year-old. So probably one of you just got to watch that trach all the way.
Within 20 minutes, the helicopter carrying A.J. arrives.
Okay, here we go. Lift. He's in here. Good. Can we give him some... Has he got any volume?
Dr. George Panayotides heads the trauma team on duty.
AJ was paralyzed chemically by medicine when he came in because he was having a lot of pain. He was having difficulty tolerating the tracheostomy tube they put in him, and he was moving around a lot. Somebody check breath sounds, please. And we have correlation with the pulse ox.
We need a chest x-ray now, please. Chest x-ray.
Well, he's got a large laceration on his forehead with a small depressed skull fracture.
Neurosurgeon William Smith examines A.J.
Here we go. It's there.
You need a gas range check.
You got it?
No, that's a globe.
The globe is disrupted.
Yeah, he has a ruptured globe on the right. His right eye was lacerated up front. The left eye was protruding and could not move.
Don't hyperventilate him quite as much, okay? Not quite as much. So it's worth getting his head scanned first.
Absolutely.
All right. The only question is whether that airway can be maintained without somebody holding it like that.
I'm going to get another.
And I don't think we could do that.
If not, then we'll go to the OR.
Marty, he's got this 3-endotracheal tube that's sewn in. It's in too far. It's very difficult to move because how tight they tied it in. It's right by his carina. We pull it back and the sat's improved, but if it slips back down, it ends up in his left main stem, and we get desaturation. I need a suture. I need something like a 2-0 silk or
He's removing. He's got to reposition the tube.
Yes.
Needs to be pulled back in. Good.
So what we did was basically make sure that that airway was safe for the baby. And then we made a decision that it was safe to take the baby to the x-ray department where we could get some information about how badly the baby's head was hurt, how bad the lungs were injured, and then whether or not he had any injuries in his abdomen.
Yeah, he has multiple facial fractures and orbital rim fractures, probably with fractures of bone into the orbital canal in the globe itself. He also has, we see air inside the cranial cavity, which indicates that he has an open fracture communicating from the outside, so he has a high risk of infection.
A.J.'s parents finally arrive after driving 2 hours to the hospital. His father had not seen him since the accident. For 10 hours, a team of surgeons work on A.J., repairing injuries to his face and eyes, as well as a fractured leg.
Okay, can we have another retractor, please? A broad one. Do you have anything broad, Louise? Hi, how are you doing today? Okay. Good.
The following day, Chief Surgical Resident Dr. Robert Attore brings A.J.'s parents up to date on his progress.
We're very encouraged in how well he's waking up. His neurologic function is very, very encouraging, and we're hoping that his recovery continues to be as good as it has been so far. The other good news is that when the nurses took the bandages off of his eyes today, he was able to move the left eye over towards the nurse who was speaking to him, and that also is encouraging. We're not very optimistic about the right eye, as you know, as the ophthalmologist explained to you, but it is encouraging that he was able to move his eye in the direction of the nurse who was speaking to him. So he's made lots of good progress. Okay. You know who I have here? You talk to your mom and dad? Huh?
Sure.
Yeah? Go ahead.
AJ. Hi, AJ. Right.
Why don't you go talk
It's
to
all
the
right.
other side, okay?
It's okay. Dad here. It's okay.
AJ, Mama's right here. We here.
Okay.
We here. Put your leg back down, baby. Mama and Daddy right here. We right here beside you. It's okay. It's okay, baby.
Dad, I brought something for you.
The way he looked before he went into the operating room, he really looked bad. And after they brought him up and they let us see him, they did a good job. And I was really happy about what they done.
You're a good boy.
Dad, I love you, okay?
We love you, okay? Shake your head. Shake your head.
Okay?
Shake your head, yeah.
Yeah.
Good boy. Good boy.
AJ, you try and get a nap now, all right? You need a lot of rest.
AJ, we be right back, okay? Okay?
We'll be right back, okay? Come on. Lay your hand down.
Okay, we right here. We gonna stay right here. You want us to stay here with you? You want us to shake your head? Yeah. You want us to stay here? Okay, we right here. We be right here beside you.
The will of a child to get better, to do the things that are needed in order to fully recover is dependent upon the emotional support he receives. So the fact that his mother and father have been here with him from the very beginning, or at his bedside when he needs them, will have a significant impact on his ultimate prognosis.
Today, Anthony's doing fairly well. When we speak with him, he's able to follow complex commands, which is a good sign. That tells us that his motor centers are working, and also tells us that his higher cortical functions are relatively intact. AJ, can you stick your tongue out for me? AJ, let me see your tongue, buddy. Stick it out. Way out. Very good, AJ. Excellent. The other injury that we're involved with as far as the neurosurgeons is that he had significant cerebral spinal fluid leaking from his nose. Given time, we would expect that leak to resolve on its own. AJ, wiggle your toes for me. It may take 8 months, 9 months, a year before we finally know what his final prognosis will be. There you go. Excellent.
We're doing the best we can do medically for these children. And we still have kids die every day. We might feel real good about AJ, but I think all of us are realistic in the sense that this afternoon, same situation, child may not do as well.
Huh?
2 months later, AJ has improved dramatically. He's regained most of the sight in his left eye, and with therapy, he's showing steady progress in recovering from his broken leg.
Come on, let's go in the playroom. Go ahead. This is definitely a miracle baby because the way he popped back, and I thank the doctors at Children's Hospital because I know if it wasn't for them, he would not be here.
We were able here, by the nature of our program, by the facilities that we have available at the hospital, to provide for AJ on the spot in the middle of the night 6 different teams of surgeons: general surgeons, neurosurgeons, ear, nose, and throat surgeons, plastic surgeons, orthopedic surgeons, and eye surgeons.
Got a pulse ox of 99.
Okay, buddy, open your eyes for me. Okay, hold on. Can I get a 4x4, please? It's very crucial to have trauma centers. As you see, obviously, in the case of AJ, that it does require a lot of money. Hospitals aren't able to maintain that cost many times. That's the reason they're closing down.
You bumped into Mickey. Basically, I just want him to live a normal life, and I'm hoping and I'm praying that he regains vision in his other eye, and I just hope he just be able to live a normal life. That's basically it. Wave, AJ. Say bye-bye. Bye-bye. Say see you later. See you later.
In order to perform life-saving techniques effectively, you need proper training. There are courses available through the American Red Cross and the American Heart Association. This series is dedicated to the real heroes who risked their lives to save the life of a stranger. I'm William Shatner. Join us again next week for more true stories on Rescue 911.